Good morning. On behalf of the Department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics, College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan, I, Dr. Manali Rodriguez, extend a very warm welcome to each one of you for session 2 of our webinar series, Nirmal Swasthya, for nutritional and lifestyle empowerment of the community. We thank Kellogg's India for collaborating with us for these sessions. Our session today is divided into two parts. To begin with, we have Ms. Rashida Vapiwala, who is a nutritionist and founder of Label Blind. She is going to talk on being an intelligent food consumer, reading food labels effectively. For the next part, we have an awareness session on food quality and adulteration put in by our students of Masters in Home Science, specializing in food processing and preservation. Before we move ahead, I have some instructions for all our participants on Zoom as well as on YouTube. For participants on Zoom, first of all, do not unmute yourself or turn on your video during the session. Do not annotate on the screen while the presentation is on. For participants on YouTube as well, questions for the speaker can be put up in the chat box on Zoom as well as on YouTube. This will be taken up after each presentation. We also request you for your valuable feedback for these sessions. The links for the same will be shared with you all at the end of the program today. I would now like to begin by introducing our speaker, Ms. Rashida Vapiwala. Ms. Rashida Vapiwala is the founder of the Nutrition Alchemy, which is a nutrition technology company that designs digital solutions for companies and consumers. She has built Label Blind, India's first food rating system that reviews and rates packaged food products on their nutritional value. She is a nutritionist with a bachelor's and master's degree in foods, nutrition, and dietetics and has been an alumna of our college. She is currently pursuing her PhD on current scenario of the packaged food and beverage industry and consumer behavior. She has been awarded the Junior Research Fellowship by University Grants Commission and has been also the recipient of the KU Naram Awards for distinguished performance in academics at the postgraduate level. She also has been felicitated with respectable certifications from different agencies and has over 9 years of experience in the field. So we are very happy to have you, Ms. Vapiwala. So over to you for the session.
My college, Nirmala Niketan, for having me here today. Can you please enable the camera for me? The host has stopped it. So just thank you everyone for having me here. A very warm good morning to all the audience there. And it's a pleasure to speak and connect with all of you. Today I'm going to speak on a very important topic of reading food labels effectively and how food labels can positively impact your health, and what are the points that you as a consumer must read on the label so that you are picking the right product for your family and ensuring their safeguarding their health, especially in times like these. I will share. All right. So thank you, Minelli, for a lovely introduction. I need not spend time on that. Allow me to communicate with the audience. See,
Thank you, Rashida.
Thank you, Minelli. The first question consumers often ask me, and I've come across this query and this lack of information in a lot of consumers, that are food labels really that important? Should I be worried about what's written on the pack, what's written on the label? Should I spend so much time on it? And how is it really going to impact me? It's food at the end. And the 2 points that consumers today read on a food label are just the price and at best an expiry date. Believe me, a lot of consumers don't even read that, and we're blindly picking up products that could otherwise, be responsible for our deteriorating health conditions. But today I'm going to explain how food labels are in fact not only going to impact your health, but also responsible for longevity. हम काफी न्यूज में पढ़ते रहते हैं, स्पेशली इन टाइम्स लाइक दीज, कि वी हर्ड दैट कोविड की वजह से जो डेथ्स इंडिया में हुए हैं, 56% of those people were diabetic, 47% of the people were hypertensive. We are clearly seeing a connection between communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases now. Our risk towards communicable disease has gone up because of underlying NCDs. And it's important to understand how these NCDs work. And, we hear of diabetes, we hear of increasing numbers of high cholesterol, we hear of increasing numbers of heart disease, obesity. All of these are related to our risk for COVID and other infectious diseases as well. There's enough research that has come to the forefront in the last 3 or 4 months. We are also reading of a Lancet report, and a very landmark study in Lancet came out last year in Feb, which said that in India, mortality due to poor diets is 50% higher than that of tobacco and alcohol. So while 7 million people annually are dying of smoking and tobacco-related disorders, 11 million people are dying due to poor diets. And what are the causes? Increased sodium intake, high trans fat and sat fat, a very low fruit and vegetable intake, and a very low whole grain intake. So we are very clearly seeing how food and nutrition is so critical for our health, our well-being, our longevity. India is it's a very abysmal score of 120 on the health index. Countries, underdeveloped countries like our neighbors are, ahead of us on this scale. And India being, at the cusp of such development, we are at a 120. It's very sad to see. We are waking up to newspaper reports of reports like India has the second highest number of obese children in the world. In fact, we've also read reports like there are more than 1 million type 1 diabetes cases, and type 2 diabetes cases in children are on the rise. Now what does that have to do with packaged food? Please understand, packaged food is entering our lives much faster than we think. While we're still not a packaged food economy like the US, but the influence of packaged food has seeped each household. We are now even getting atta, dal, chawal, which comes in a packet, right? And apart from that, the convenience foods that we are eating in terms of biscuits, cereals, noodles, juices, all of this is trickling into our households much faster than we can imagine. So why is it so popular? Why is packaged food so popular? 4 things: because of its convenience, it saves a lot of time, it's attractive, it's palatable, it's very tasty, right? Kids are craving for more sugary beverages, craving for sugary foods, craving for those sugar coated cereals, and it's also very cost effective. because it saves time. It allows working parents to do much more with their time rather than go back to their kitchens and cook. As nutritionists, we also realize the importance of packaged food because consumers are evolving, lifestyles are evolving. We cannot expect people to go back to farmlands and pluck their own fruits and vegetables. So this is a part of evolution and we have to adapt to it. But we need not compromise with it. We have to understand what each food label is telling us and clearly make a choice between what is good for you and what is not good for you. So here are some stats, as I said, that we are seeing India on the Eat Lancet report, mortality high due to low food, high sodium, low fruit vegetable intake, low nuts and seeds, all of that, right? Now, coming to the food label and why is it important? So manufacturers are often seeing food labels as a regulatory compliance. FSSAI ने हमें बताया है food label डालना है, उसमें इतनी 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 चीजें होनी चाहिए and that's pretty much it. But what it is important to understand is the rationale behind having a food law, and that's what consumers must understand. The rationale here is to build trust, transparency, and food safety. Each information piece that the regulator mandates to be put on the food label is for your safety, for you to have trust on the product, and for you to have complete and comprehensive information about what you are consuming. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this is your right. So there are multiple things that you will see mandatory on a food label. You will find the name of the product, the ingredient vegetarian or non-vegetarian, the nutrition table on the
Miss Rashida. Miss Rashida, we are unable to hear you.
oh, sorry, I got muted. Sorry, I will go back. So I am on the food label, ladies and gentlemen, and each piece of information that the FSSAI has mandated by the food manufacturers is for you to have complete trust, complete understanding, and complete comprehensiveness of the product that you are buying. So why are each of the pieces important? You will read on this slide. So I'll start with the right. There's a best before or a use by date, which tells you by when you need to consume the product.
Miss
There is
Rashida, can I ask you to stop for a second? We are unable to see your screen. Can you please start sharing it again?
I'll do that. Can you see it now, Minelli? Minelli, can you see it?
Yes, It is visible to us now. You can let me know if I should share it from my end. Yeah, requesting you to put it on full screen mode.
Perfect. If it's visible, yeah, we're good.
Yes, please put it on full screen mode.
It is. Visible?
Yes, visible, but it is not currently on screen show mode.
It is on full screen, Minelli. Can you see it?
No, not yet. Yes, you can continue now. Thank you.
Strange, it is at my end.
Yes, requesting you to also disable the annotations before you resume.
So here are the most critical pieces on the food label that one must be aware of. See, I understand as
You can begin with the slideshow and then disable the annotations.
done that.
Yes, we are able to view it now. You can continue.
Okay. So as I said, these are the most critical 12 pieces on the food label that you must as a consumer be aware of. Having said that, it's it, it's very difficult for consumers to read so much of information in the mere 20-30 seconds that you have, while making your purchase decision. We don't have that much time to read the label for every food label, for every food pack that we are purchasing from the grocery. So we need a little smarter solution for that, don't we? So there are 5 points that I urge each consumer to be aware of and ensure that they are reading on the food label. So we call it the AINA principle. And the first thing is your ingredient list. Ladies and gentlemen, ingredient list is pretty
Miss Rashida, we are unable to hear you. Miss Rashida,
please
we are
share it at your end because I'm getting thrown
yes,
out of the
yes.
screen share. Full screen mode. Yes, so here are the 5 things that we always recommend users to be aware of, right? And first thing is your list of ingredients. Ingredients are always written in a descending order. So when you are reading the first 2 or 3 or 4 items on the ingredient list, it pretty much tells you what the food product is made up of. So if you read things like hydrogenated vegetable oil or sugar on the first, or maida, refined atta, refined flour, on the first 2 or 3 ingredients, you know that this product is probably not the one that you want to pick up, right? The second point on ingredients is try to go for shorter lists. The shorter the list, the closer it is to nature. It's minimally processed and much more positively impacting your health than the latter. Also read for identifiable ingredients. So there are food additives that are present in a bunch of products out there. We always try to pick up products that are sans additives, clean label products, 100% natural. But sometimes it's always also important for you to, as a consumer, understand that some products cannot be rendered edible without processing. So for example, edible oil. Not all the oils will be edible if you just go for a filtered or a kachi ghani process. There are certain refining processes that are essential to make certain edible oils available for consumption, right? So you need not have a very blanket view about processed food being bad, because all these food additives that are being used are regulated by the government. They are added in quantities that which have clear guidelines of tolerable limits, and they are approved by the government. All right. However, for a safety precaution, we do try to pick up products with natural or nature identical flavorings and colorings rather than artificial chemicals. So that's my second point. Look for additives. Look for natural and nature identical on your label. And there are some E numbers, INS numbers written. So it indicates that the regulator has approved it. The third piece that you need to read is the nutrition table, right? Which is very important. So the nutrition table is divided into, you have to look at it in 2 sections. You have to look at nutrients that are harmful for you, and you have to look at nutrients that are beneficial for you. So which are the beneficial ones? You look for protein, you look for dietary fiber, you look for iron, calcium, vitamin A, vitamin C, right? These are nutrients that will benefit your health and need to be had in larger quantities. Which are the nutrients that you will limit? You will limit added sugar, you will limit saturated fat, you will limit trans fat, you will limit sodium. So these are the nutrients that could cause potential harm in the body. They make you more, increase the risk for your non-communicable diseases. So you steer clear of them, right? Those are the ones that you control, lesser the better. The fourth point is the serving size, right? Serving size is very important. In India, the regulator mentions that all the nutrients have to be written per 100 grams. And that's why it's difficult for us to distinguish between what's a right serving size. However, in common terms, I would say कि आप एक sitting में या एक बार में product की कितनी quantity आप consume कर रहे हैं. That's your serving size. So for example, for snacks, standard serving size is say 30 grams, right? Or for bread, it is 2 slices of bread, which is 50 grams, right? For any kind of, for a noodle, usually one noodle cake is 70 grams, and that's 1 serving size. It gives you 1 bowl of noodles. So it's very important to check the serving size of the pack that you are buying. Sometimes what happens, discount ke chakkar mein, or we are, lured by schemes like 1 plus 1 free and 2 plus 1 free, and we end up buying a lot more than we need. There are these huge family packs, and cola bottles coming in 2 liters, and chips coming in family packs, and you, as a consumer, it's very difficult for you to assess how much you should eat at one sitting. So while it may sound more expensive to buy smaller packs, it is better that you do. It is always better that you go for smaller size packs, right? And the fifth piece that I want to talk to you about is the allergens. So As per FSSAI, it is important to list down 8 allergens on the pack. And what are your 8 allergens? They are your dairy products, fish products, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts like walnuts, almonds, cashew, and also sulfite, right? So these have, for those who have underlying allergy, is important for you to read those allergens on the food pack. I'm showing you some examples on the next slide, please. Yes, this is one very imperative point that I wanted to share with you, that for specifically for sugar and salt. Sugar is present in 70 different forms on a food label. All right. हम काफी डिबेट सुनते हैं कि ये नेचुरल शुगर है, ये एडेड शुगर है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, शुगर इज शुगर इज शुगर. ओके, तो अगर किसी ने ब्राउन शुगर लिख दिया, या मोलासेस है, या हनी है, या जैगरी है, या बीट शुगर है, या मॉल्ट सिरप है, हाई फ्रक्टोज कॉर्न सिरप है, they all mean the same thing. It is sugar. It is going to have the same impact on your blood sugar. So diabetics have to be very careful when they are picking up sweetened products, right? Also, secondly, some ingredients like say jaggery or honey or even agave for that matter may have shown to have better health benefits compared to regular white sugar. But still, on the whole, I would suggest that as consumers, try to reduce your sugar intake, try to reduce the intake of sugar on any packaged food. Likewise, for salt and sodium. Salt is not only present in the salt that we add in food, but also in preservatives in the form of, say, a sodium benzoate or a flavor enhancer or a baking soda. These are all sources of sodium that you must be aware of. So it's not just one pinch of salt that you're adding, but sodium coming in from multiple sources. ये पढ़ना बहुत ज़रूरी है in your ingredient list. Next slide, please. Food additives, as I mentioned, will always be a part of your ingredient list. They have to be compulsorily be mentioned with an INS number or an E number. For it's mandatory. So if you find anything, that any chemical name which is written without an INS or an E number, please raise the query with FSSAI or any consumer grievance cell. Next slide, please. Here's the nutrition label that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, this is a perfect nutrition label. Okay, it's a reference image here that I've taken. As I mentioned, if you see, the serving size is mentioned on the top of the nutrition table. So it says that 55 grams or 2/3 cups of this product is one serving. That much is what you need to consume at one time, not more than that. So you can't take a 100 gram or a 120 gram chip packet and say that ये एक packet है तो ये एक serving size है. No, that product could have 3, 4 or even 5 serving sizes, and this is where consumers make a mistake. We buy a packet of biscuits, a simple salty cracker or a simple cream biscuit with 5-6 biscuits. We think it's a small packet and we end up consuming the full thing, not knowing that you've just had 3 servings of that cream biscuit or 3 servings of that salted cracker, and you've put your health at risk 3 times. Also, my point that I want to draw your attention to is the 5-20 principle. Okay, so किसी भी label पे you will see a daily value written, and you will see these percentages on the right hand side. So now, what do these numbers mean? These numbers are called as the daily values, as in what proportion of nutrient is this product exhausting with one serving. That's what it means. For you, if I have to request you to remember one rule, you remember that fat, sugar or salt have to be as low as possible. Those numbers have to be less than 5% as much as possible. And for positive nutrients like protein, fiber, iron, calcium, potassium, all these positive nutrients, they can be as high as they can be. So up to above 20%, it's a nice high product, high iron product, or a high vitamin D product, and that, or a high protein product. And those are the products that you should pick up. Next slide, please. Now, food labels are evolving, regulations are evolving, and there are various mediums that there are new technologies, new innovations coming in the food label space. The previous slide that you saw was the new format of the food label that the US FDA has come up with, and now all the companies are complying to. Soon it will be in India as well. Currently, next slide, please. A very interesting piece that I want to draw your attention to, ladies and gentlemen, is the front of pack labeling that is coming into the play. So what are the new trends in food labeling? First is people are now beginning to pay attention to food labels. And while the complexity of reading a food label is still there, it still exists, there are some simplified formats coming up. So now food labels are being are using a review, a rating, a score, a color as a hook, as an identifiable factor for simplicity. So now these are some samples. If you see on the top left, you see those colored symbols with an amber, a green. That's the traffic signal labeling that United Kingdom has adopted since many years. So what does it do? It picks up critical nutrients like fat, total fat, saturated fat, sugars and salt, and it tells you how the product is performing on those nutrients. So if it's red, the product is high in sugar. If it's green, the product is low in sugar. If it's an amber, then it's somewhere in between. Likewise, for the for the chili symbols on the top right, let me draw your attention. These are called as warning symbols. So there are laws which in Chile which say that if a product is high in saturated fat, it must have this black box. And this is what consumers are looking at when they are picking products. So these symbols, these graphical representations make it very easy for you as a consumer to quickly within seconds identify whether a product is either high in fat or high in calories or high in sugar. Then we all have seen the famous Nutri-Score, which has come up in Europe, which Europe has adopted last year. And it started with France. There is a color grading which says A, B, C, D, E. It's a complete scoring algorithm that, looks at multiple parameters and grades food products. So that is where the industry and that is where the world is evolving in the space of food labels. It's not just the back of pack nutrition table or the elaborate information there, but it's also this. And what has been by far the most successful is the health star rating adopted by Australia and New Zealand. So there is a scoring for a product which is on a scale of 1 to 5, and then there are stars. Now, why have we adopted these methods? It's because that's how we as consumers are evolving. Today, we are going to restaurants on the basis of a restaurant rating. We are picking up, selecting hotels for our next vacation basis a TripAdvisor score. Even governments have adopted scoring, review rating methods for electronic appliances. You pick up electronic appliances basis the stars that are there on the fridge or the AC, right? So these are very good cues for consumers to identify how good or not so good a product is. Next slide, please. The interest in reading food labels and reading about food labels is increasing. So you will see some bestseller books on food labels internationally, and there are a bunch of them. I could only place 4 on my slide, but I can list down 40 for you. It only shows that consumers are now ready to take control of their health through food. Next slide, please. They have a desire to know the facts. They want to know more about the product. Next. And now they're taking action basis the information that they have. So now they're reading 2 food labels and they are now picking up the right product basis the information that they have. That's how you have to use food labels, as a tool, as a guide to select the better one. As a consumer, the choice is yours, right? It's important, it's critical, it's mandatory for companies to give you all the information that you have the right to, but it's up to you to make use of that information while picking food for yourself. Next slide, please. Now, I love this section, and this is the last section on my slide PPT, and this is one of the most engaging sections that I have, and I pretty much love speaking about this. So consumers come and ask me, in fact, mothers come and ask me that we want to start this habit with our children very early. How do we do that? And it's such an imperative point that we need to start engaging our kids at a young age to read all this information, so that the mistakes that we have made by choosing incorrect food, we do not want to transfer that knowledge to them down our generations. So it's important to catch them young and get them acquainted with food labels very quickly. Next slide, please. Now, what is child behavior like? So they're very inquisitive. So you talk to them in a manner of food scores, you gamify the food label for them, and you ask them questions like, okay, what's the protein content of a food pack, and just explain it to me. They have very short attention span, so definitely how you want to engage, it has to be a very engaging method to kind of converse with them. But however, they are very fast learners. They're very fast learners, and all of us have at some point of time spoken about how our children are smarter than us. And that's why it's important to get them to choose right from a very, very young age. They are now beginning to take their own decisions, and it's important that they take the right decision from this young, tender, impressionable age. And of course, they're completely glued to tech. So there are laptops, there are tablets, and there are mobile screens that you can't kind of do away with. So why not make the learning more constructive? Why don't we make the screen time more user friendly or more constructive for them to learn? Next slide. So you will see a bunch of apps today and a bunch of digital solutions available in the market. Internationally, this has been a trend now, that you pick up the phone, you scan either the label of the food product, scan the barcode, and you get the nutrition information of the product. So the Nutri-Score has adopted it, and there are multiple apps that are doing it, and it's easy, and it's also easy to comprehend because things are at the touch of your screen, right? On the same, next slide, please. On the same premise, we have built Label Blind. So what you have to do it's very simple. We have rated food products. We have our own scoring algorithm, which rates food products on their nutrition values. And we are checking 14 parameters in each food label, simplifying the food label so that you as a consumer can make the right choice. Next slide, please. It's a first of its kind in India. We're very proud to say that, and we're very proud to, in fact, have FSSAI notice our work right within the first 6 months of our work. So it's simple. You type in the name of a product or you scan a product and you get a score. The score gives you a hook to decide which product is better and which one do I as a consumer need to choose, need to pick up, right? So it gives you a choice from all the products that are available in the market. So within 10-20 seconds, you're able to make your product choice. Next slide, please. On that note, I'd like to draw an end to my presentation, leaving all of you with thoughts from 3 people who have inspired me on my journey, and leave you with the message that food labels are far more important and far more potent than we think they are. Considering the way the packaged food industry is moving and how packaged food industry is growing and contributing to the economy, they are here to stay. And you as a consumer have the right to have all the information, but however, it is your responsibility to read it, understand it, and then make the right choice for your friends and family, so that food choices are working in your favor. They are working at impacting your health positively and taking you away from the risk of non-communicable diseases. And on that note, I'd like to end my presentation, thanking the host, and would love to take questions after the session.
Thank you, Ms. Vapiwala. That was a very interesting and enriching session on reading food labels, and you have put it in a very easily understandable format for all our participants out here. So we will now begin with the question and answer session. Firstly, there is a participant who wants to know, uh, in our country, we have a lot of products from the unorganized sector without any food labeling. So what could be the dangers associated with the consumption of such products?
The first danger is you don't know what that food product is made up of. So not only from a regulatory perspective, but your own health perspective. What if you end up eating a product that you are allergic to? Or what if you end up eating a product that has led to a health issue that you can't trace back, right? So labels are important for you to make the choice of foods that are that suit your body, that suit your health, and that's why they become very important. So I would request, in fact I would urge users to steer clear of products that are sold without labels. No matter if you know the person personally, maybe you can, but then for all food manufacturers, it is important to have an FSSAI license, and labeling is mandatory, so no second thoughts on that.
Okay. What about traditional foods which are sold in such a manner without a label, Ms. Vapiwala?
So there are two things. Now, the FSSAI guideline also has said that nutrition table is not necessary in single ingredient items. Okay. So for example, chai hai, ya honey hai, you don't need a nutrition table on it. But however, you need a food label on it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So things like ingredients, expiry date, manufacturers details, those are compulsory. Those have to be there. The nutrition table need not be there.
The next question from our participants: can we know the exact amount of ingredients going in a product through a food label? Is it mandatory for a manufacturer to reveal the ingredient composition?
These days, yes, it is important to, you will see on any fresh food label or on some few new products, and even in these large companies, you will read that the proportion of the ingredient is often stated on the pack. So for example, if I have a energy bar, for example, so if I've put pumpkin seeds, I will write pumpkin seeds 8%, right? So yes, it is coming into practice for people to declare the proportions of their ingredients as well.
Okay. You have mentioned presence of 20% of a nutrient as high. So is it a FSSAI guideline?
It's a US FDA guideline. They follow the 520 rule there.
Okay. What are the regulations on geo-labeling? What is your take on that?
See, by geo labeling, tell me if my understanding is correct. I think it's the geo tracking, it's traceability, right? Mm-hmm. So traceability right now is not mandatory currently, but it's a huge trend, and there are some conversations at the regulators end that are happening on that. People are wanting to put tags on their products, wherein you can trace the product right back to the farmer. So if you are a food manufacturer who's doing that, great, it's a great competitive advantage for you. And if you are a consumer who has this information, read it, know where your product is coming from, where the producer is coming from, and I think it's a trend here to stay. People are asking questions, and manufacturers have to provide the answers.
Our next question: you spoke about nutrients to prefer, like protein, and nutrients to limit, like added sugar and sodium. So what's your take on educating consumers to have variety, moderation, and take everything as part of our recommended intakes as a nutritionist? Because for Indian consumers, sometimes it may be very difficult to adhere to their diet or to restrict sugar and salt.
See, moderation, nutrition labels work with numbers, and that's why it becomes very empirical and number back, right? So there is a high which is at 20% and up. There's a 5, and then everything in between is moderation in any which way. All right. However, each individual consumer is responsible for his or her intake. You need to count that if I am having a packet of chips in the, say by noon, I had that, right? And I know that these chips were high in sodium. So it is up to you to moderate your salt intake for the rest of the day, right? Of course, on the learning curve, we as Indians are have a long way to go in terms of nutrition literacy, and that's what we always strive to do, that we're trying to acquaint people of these terminologies, these numbers. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of time, but as consumers, start taking responsibility for the food that you are consuming as well. Ask questions, try to learn more, try to read these numbers, and attempt as you go.
The next question, what improvements do you expect in food labeling to occur in our country in the next 5 or 10 years? What changes do you anticipate?
Believe me, the first change standing at the door is the front of pack labeling. India has already put its draft regulation for front of pack labeling. The symbols that I showed you for Australia, Chile, UK, and Europe is something that is already at the draft stage, and that itself is a big improvement, a big step ahead for India for now. So I'm looking forward for the next in the next few months that this draft to kind of get actioned, and it'll be a whole new way of information there.
Okay. In our country, we have a lot of people, a percentage of people who are illiterate, who may not be able to read a food label. Whereas on the other hand, we have a lot of these goods which reach every part of our country. So how food labeling would reach such consumers?
See, rural, in fact, I was reading a study, Manali, yesterday, that for the first time in history, rural consumption of internet is, rural usage of mobile phones is higher than urban usage of mobile phones. The mobile has entered the rural space, so I'm sure digital technologies will reach there soon, which have these, solutions like regional language translations and support in vernacular languages. I think the solutions are will come in short course of time.
Okay. We have another question. How many days after expiry can a food product be used? Can it be used in the first place?
If there is an expired by date, you must not use that product. But however, if it is a best before date, then the product is still consumable, and to a certain extent, though it does not meet the quality parameters that it stood for earlier. So if it's expiry, don't use it. If it's best before, you can still end up consuming it.
So thank you, Ms. Papiwala. So first of all, we wish to thank you for accepting our invitation and being with us here today, and also addressing the queries put in by our participants. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, Minelli. Thank you, everyone, and thank you everyone at Nirmala Niketan for having me here. It's lovely to be back with my own college. In fact, I'm very proud to say that I'm a Nirmala Niketan alumni, and anything that I can do for my college is less, So thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate. Thank you. Good luck.
Yes, thank you. We now move on to part 2 of our session today, which is by our students of MSc Home Science, Food Processing and Preservation. I ask Ms. Trisha Ganguly to take over.
Thank you, Dr. Manelli. Good afternoon to all of you all. After having an exciting and enriching session on food labeling, let's move on to the second part of the session. As Dr. Manelli said, that the second part of the session is on food adulteration and food quality. This is a special session because this is being put up by our students, our MSc final year students who are pursuing their food processing and preservation. So this is something which has been put up by them. So as we all know that the food quality is very, very important, and it's very important that we monitor the quality of food at different sections of the food processing, during the food processing, or else there would be an hazardous effect on health which can be seen. So it's very important that the quality is being considered. One more aspect which they are going to speak on, the students are going to speak on, is on food adulteration, जिसे हम खाद्य पदार्थ के मिलावट भी बोलते हैं. So ये जो फूड अडल्ट्रेशन है, जो मिलावटें होती है, वो हमारी फूड की क्वालिटी को डिटोरिएट करती है, इंफीरियर कर देती है. तो एज अ फूड कंज्यूमर ये हमारा हक है कि हम सतर्क रहे, सावधान रहे कि क्या क्या टेस्ट, क्या क्या जांच पड़ताल के द्वारा हम अडल्ट्रेटेड और नॉन अडल्ट्रेटेड पदार्थ में अंतर कर सकते हैं. तो हमारे विद्यार्थियों ने इस वीडियो में, जो वीडियो आपको दिखाने वाले हैं, उसमें कुछ सिंपल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन किए हैं जो आप अपने घर बैठे भी कर सकते हैं. एंड ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम ऑफ पैंडेमिक wherein quality has to be taken a bit more into concern, it's very important that ये अडल्ट्रेशन की भी हम अंतर और हम समझे कि कौन सा अडल्ट्रेटेड है और कौन सा अडल्ट्रेटेड नहीं है. So we hope that you would appreciate the video. The students have put in a lot of efforts for the same. So let's start with it. Can I request Ms. Sheetal Joshi to share the video, please?
Good noon, everyone. We are the students of MSc2 Food Processing and Preservation from College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan. And today we are going to talk about awareness on food quality and adulteration. So my name is Mubashira. And today me and my colleagues, that is Kriti, Ankita, Rajal, Vaibhav, Olivia, Kritika, and finally Anaga, we all are going to talk about food quality and adulteration. So starting with food quality. So the basic definition of food quality is that the degree of excellence, and it also includes the factors with a sensory quality consisting of appearance, color, texture, taste, odor, flavor, etc. that is being significantly important. So in short, it includes both the factors, as in the internal factors and the external factors. When I say external factors, it includes the appearance, color, texture, etc. The internal factors, it includes the physical, microbiological, and the chemical aspects into consideration. So the example of food quality we can take is the grading of eggs. So according to egg mark, so the egg mark is basically a certification mark which is being employed on agricultural products in India. So according to egg mark, the grading of eggs have been done according to the size, according to the yolk present into it, the white part that is present into it, and finally it is being graded. So coming to food quality and food safety, so I just want to clear out one point over here, that these two terms are different. However, these two terms have been used interchangeably a lot of times. So when I say food safety, it is basically assurance of food that it will not cause any harm to the consumer. Food quality, as I have explained, it includes both the internal and the external qualities of the food product that is being acceptable to the consumer. So if we take the example of egg, so in order to make sure that the food is safe for consumption, the egg is safe for consumption, before consuming it, we can clean it, wipe it, and finally consume it. This is how we can assure that, the food that we are eating is safe for consumption. So coming to the categories of food quality, so there are mainly 4 categories of food quality. First one is the product oriented. It basically includes or assess the characteristics of the food product. For example, physical or organoleptic properties. Then coming to the process oriented, it is basically the quality or the product, the quality which is associated with the process that is being adopted for the production and the transformation of the product. Then coming to the quality control, the standard that has been designed, that the standards can either be a process oriented or the product oriented. Then finally the user oriented quality, the quality which is being finally perceived by the user. Then the most important characteristic that we need to keep in mind when we are dealing with food quality is, first of all, the standardized food. That is, identify of a food in relation to the standard. We need to have a proper declaration of a gross or the net quantity, the declared or the claimed amount of one or more stated components of food, the appearance, flavor, aroma, texture, viscosity, the shelf life stability. Finally, is it fit for human consumption or not? The wholesomeness, the adulteration. Adulteration part will be dealing in depth in the later part of the presentation. Then packaging, and finally the labeling. So these are just a gist of what exactly we mean by the food quality. One more point I would like to mention over here is that in times of COVID-19, we all are so much concern about the spreading of virus. The one thing that we need to understand is that according to US FDA, there is no such research which states that the virus spreads through via food or water. Thus, the only thing that we can keep in mind that to maintain the personal hygiene, the hygienic condition, when we are preparing the food or when we are actually eating it, because the virus can survive on the surface. Now I'm handing over to my friend Kriti. She'll be talking about adulteration in depth. Thank you.
So, hello everyone, myself Kriti Pant, and I'm going to talk about adulteration today. So adulteration is something where your food product quality gets reduced knowingly or unknowingly by addition of some inferior quality foreign particles, or by extracting some value added constituent from your food product. So for example, like water, sand or sawdust particles or detergent, these are all in inferior quality, and when added to your food product, reduces the overall quality of your food article. So adulterated food product, when consumed repetitively, it gives a negative impact on your health. For example, mustard oil is usually adulterated with argemone oil, and repetitive consumption of this would lead to a condition called edema, which is a disease in which your soft tissues get swelled up. Another example is of turmeric, which is usually adulterated with methanol yellow color, which is a non-permitted synthetic food color, which is carcinogenic in nature. So according to FSSAI, adulterant is any material which makes your food unsafe, substandard or misbranded. So now FDA has given certain pointers as to which, in order to identify whether the food is being adulterated or not. So a food is said to be adulterated if the foreign material added to the food product is either injurious to health or inferior in quality as compared to your food article, or it reduces the overall quality of your food product, or any substance is removed from the main food article, lowering the overall quality of the food product. So food adulteration is basically very common in our country, and it is very unsafe to consume adulterated food product, and it is usually done to gain profits, and it is leading to food frauds. Adulteration can be divided into two categories, that is intentional and unintentional adulteration. So as the name suggests, intentional adulteration is something wherein the person adulterates the food product knowingly, whereas unintentional is a condition wherein the person is not aware that he is adulterating the food product. Now this could happen due to lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, and lack of good hygienic practices. So as you can see in this image, in case of intentional, this guy is preparing a green color. He's using synthetic food color to color the vegetables. He's intentionally adulterating the food product. Whereas in unintentional, the guy is not quite aware of the surroundings and lacks in good hygienic practices, therefore invading the rodents and pests. In case of unintentional adulteration, usually the food product is contaminated or adulterated with the rodent droppings or the pesticides or excessive preservatives, or it could be even adulterated with the mercury which is released from the effluents. So, for example, our ghee is usually adulterated with dalda or coconut oil. Milk is usually adulterated with milk is usually adulterated with water in order to increase the bulk or the weight of the milk, and sugar is usually adulterated with urea or chalk powder. Now, in order to prevent such scenarios, in order to prevent adulteration, Government of India has came up with an act which is Prevention of Food Adulteration Act. So there are quality controlling agencies which enforces minimum standards for the consumer products such as ISI, EGMA, FPO. So in case of packaged food items, you can check for these logos, and these ensure that your food product is safe and it is not adulterated. So now I would like to hand over to Ankita. Thank you.
My name is Ankita Chaudhary and I'll be talking about FSSAI and DART. So FSSAI stands for Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. It was established under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare during the year 2006, and it is responsible for protecting and promoting public health through providing a certain set of rules and regulations, through supervision of food safety provided by food safety officers, and also by licensing and registration for the FBOs, which are food business operators. And this FSSAI, they provide many books and reports and manuals. For example, it provides the pink book, the orange book, purple book, and also manuals for food safety operators. One of such book is the DART book. It stands for Detect Adulteration with Rapid Test. This book categorizes adulteration tests into 7 categories, which is milk and milk products, oil and fats, fruits and vegetables, grains and their products, spices and condiments, sugars and confectionery, and beverages. And under these categories, there are various tests which are being given. These tests are very simple, which anyone can perform at home. They hardly use any chemicals, or they don't use any chemicals. So in order to give a better idea about what these tests are and how they are performed, a few of my friends are going to demonstrate adulteration tests within all of these categories. So let's have a look at those videos.
So hi everyone, my name is Rajal, and today I'll be demonstrating 2 tests based on milk quality and oil quality. So using this test, you can determine whether the products that you have at home are adulterated or not. So starting with milk, milk is generally adulterated with starch, water, detergent, etc. So today I'll be showing you a test in which you can determine whether the milk that you have is adulterated with water or not. So here is the test. So this was about milk. Now going on to the next test, which is of oil quality. So oil is generally known to be adulterated with a mixture of other oils, like coconut oil can be adulterated with palm oil or any other inferior quality oils. Other than that, oil can also be adulterated with TOCP, that is triorthocresol phosphate. So here we will be seeing the test now, the determination of whether the presence of TOCP is there in your oil or not.
Hi guys, my name is Vaibhav and I'm going to show you the demonstration on how to detect the adulteration on vegetables like ladyfinger. So generally it is dyed with malachite green. So let's start with demonstration. Also, I'm going to show you the demonstration on how to detect the adulteration in wheat flour. So generally the wheat flour is mixed with wheat bran.
Hello, I'm Oliver Castro. Today I'll be showing a demonstration on how to detect adulteration in sweetening agents such as jaggery. Now jaggery is most commonly adulterated with chalk powder. So here is an adulteration test that can be easily done at home. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Kritika. Today I will be demonstrating two tests on how to detect adulteration in spices such as chili powder and black pepper. So first we will go with chili powder. Chili powder is most commonly adulterated with sawdust. So let me show you test point. Let's do another test, which is black pepper. Black pepper is mostly adulterated with papaya seed. Let's do a test.
Further be talking about on how to report a file a complaint against the adulterated food products. So firstly, you can directly report to the food manufacturers or the FPOs. You have the customer care number or the feedbacks form where you can write to them, mail them, or through their websites, you can connect to them regarding this adulteration of food products. And if you still don't find any rectification or still the product has been adulterated, you can file a legal complaint through FSSAI. They have their website called as Food Safety Connect, where you can see, if you open this website, this is the home screen of that website. So you can see two options, that is packaged food and food premises. So for filing a complaint against both the FPOs, you need a registration number or a license number through which you can file a complaint against them. After you open this website, this is the first page which will be opening, which will demand for the registration or the license number given to each FBO. So this is the identity which you will be this would be the proof that you are complaining against them. Next, you will see various kind of categories where you can define your food adulteration or whatever the problem or grievances you have against that product. like there is some labeling misconception or FSSAI license number if it is not written properly, if the food is adulterated or the food package has been damaged or something of that sort. So then again, you can give the description or elaborate your complaint against the food product like operator, and then you can also add in attach photos or videos regarding the problem. Then you need to select the product category exactly what it belongs to. Then you can write the food safety officer's number or whatever the designation which is given over there who handles the complaints against this, and then you can just submit the complaint. This is how you register or file a complaint against the food product if it is found to be adulterated. Over to Olivia, who will be elaborating the pointers on food safety guidelines and hygiene practices.
Thanks, Anaga. So moving ahead, my name is Olivia Crasto, and I'll be talking about certain food safety and hygiene guidelines. So these guidelines have been given by two governing bodies. One is FSSAI and the other is Eat Right Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So FSSAI, Ankita has already spoken on that. And Eat Right Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is a US organization which gives information about food and nutrition. So since we are in this pandemic time, it is necessary to ensure safety and hygiene. So let's look at certain guidelines. So the first one is germ hotspots in your kitchen. This has been given by FSSAI. So the first one is kitchen sink. So kitchen sink is one of the most commonest germ hotspot which you can find in your kitchen, and therefore it has to be cleaned very well, followed by disinfectant. The second one is cloth. So generally when we use cotton cloth, it has to be disinfected properly. Otherwise you can use a disposable tissue cloth. The third germ hotspot is a food contact point, food contact spots. So this is usually the cutting board that we use to cut your vegetables or your meat products. So generally we need to use two different kinds of cutting boards that should be color coded, one for veg items and the other for non-veg items. If we use the same cutting board for both, it can lead to cross-contamination. The fourth one is frequently touched surfaces. So these include your fridge or doorknobs or your cupboards or your drawer handles, taps, etc. So these are the most frequently touched surfaces that you find in your kitchen, and therefore it has to be disinfected properly. The fifth one is dustbin. Now it is necessary to ensure to segregate your waste into wet and dry, and also use dustbins with a proper lid. So this reduces the bad odors in your kitchen and also ensures less contamination and less infection. Moving on to the next guideline. This is given by Eat Right Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It is called as Food Storage Savvy, your guide to what goes where. So this is a guidance document which has been given by Eat Right, which talks about how you need to store your food. Now, since we are in this lockdown period and we have bought a lot of essential items, so it's also necessary to store these essential food items in its proper place. So this guidance document talks about 3 different storage. One is freezer, which is 0 degree Fahrenheit or below. That is below minus 18 degrees Celsius. So here you usually put in your fish, meat products, poultry. You need to wrap it and label it correctly and then store it in the freezer condition. The next storage condition is your fridge or your refrigerator, which is about 34 degree Fahrenheit to 40 degree Fahrenheit. That is about 4 degrees Celsius. So here you usually keep your dairy items, your eggs, your vegetables and all. So vegetables has to be wrapped correctly and has to be kept in the drawers, which is below your at the below section of the refrigerator. Then the third one is your pantry section, which is usually those items that you keep at room temperature storage. That is your cereals, your certain fruits and vegetables such as onions, potatoes, and bananas or melons. So also certain items such as mayonnaise or canned foods, once if they're not opened, should be kept in room temperature conditions, and once opened, they has to be kept in refrigeration conditions as per the label guidelines. So this is the second guideline which has been given. The third one is given by FSSAI, which talks about 5 keys to safer food. So the first key is maintaining good personal hygiene. This is something which is very important, especially during these times. That is hand washing, disinfection, etc. The second one is separation of raw and cooked food. This is very important because raw food contains a lot of microorganisms and therefore it can cross-contaminate your cooked food. Therefore, these two kinds of foods has to be kept separate. The third key is to cook and reheat your food thoroughly. That is, you need to cook your food above 65 degrees Celsius, which is the fourth key as per the diagram. So here it talks about your danger zone, which is between 5 degrees Celsius to 65 degrees Celsius. So if your food temperature is between this range, it is, the load of microorganisms is much more and the chances of infection is also much more, and therefore you need to store your food below 5 degrees Celsius or heat your food above 65 degrees Celsius. The fifth key is using clean potable water to wash your raw food items. So it is very essential to use clean potable water. If the water is not potable, it itself will be a source of contamination and a source of microorganisms which will contaminate your raw food. Therefore, these three are the guidelines which has been given by FSSAI and Eat Right. So following these becomes very essential, especially during this pandemic time. So lastly, would like to conclude by saying a very big thank you. Thank you to our college, College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan, to our principal, Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, our HOD, Anumitra ma'am, and our professors, Veena ma'am and Trisha ma'am, for all the guidance and support that they have provided us during this session. Thank you.
I think that was a wonderful session. We are very sure that you all would have taken your notes down. So congratulating the FPP students for putting this up. Just to boost their morale, all the teachers would just like to tell you all that there are many positive comments and you all are being flooded with a lot of appreciation on Zoom as well as on YouTube. So congratulations to all the students. So let's go ahead with few questions which we have. So the very first question, which is, are DART booklets easily available on FSSAI websites? Can someone answer? Any of the student?
Hello, ma'am. Ankita.
Hi, Ankita. Go ahead. Yeah.
Ma'am, it is very easily available on FSSAI website. They have this option where they give books and manuals, and you can click on that and you will see all the books that are available over there, and you can just download the PDF of the DART book.
Okay. And the various kinds of PDFs which you said, the yellow book, the orange book, the pink book, all of them are available, right? So people can get access to all those booklets.
Yes.
Ankita, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just said that all kind of booklets would be available, right? The pink book, the yellow book.
Yes, ma'am. All those books will be available.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Ankita.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. Can these kind of adulterations be harmful to our health? Who is going to answer this?
Hello.
Hi, Kriti. Go ahead. Yes, Kriti, we can hear you.
So, ma'am, yes, ma'am, some kind of adulteration can be injurious to health if present in excessive amounts or if we are consuming those adulterated products repetitively. As I gave example earlier about the mustard oil, like it's adulterated with argemone oil. So if there's a repetitive consumption of such adulterated food products, then it can cause negative impact to our health as well.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Kriti. So it's very important that we as consumers should differentiate between adulterated and non-adulterated food products. So see to it that we all do download those booklets and make use of those booklets. Okay, next question. Why is there a need of having different color-coded cutting boards for veg and non-veg food products? Who is taking this?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be taking this question.
Yeah, Olivia, go ahead.
So it is essential that we need to have two different color coded cutting boards for one simple reason, that is cross contamination. So you all know that veg and non-veg items, when they are raw, both of them are loaded with microorganisms. So you don't want the microorganisms from your non-veg item to cross contaminate those from in your veg items, and vice versa. So that's one of the simplest reason why you need to, keep two different kinds of cutting boards. Yeah.
Thank you, Olivia. So it's basically depending on the kind of microbial load. So there would be cross-contamination happening from your non-veg products to your veg products and vice versa. So it's very, very important that you have two different cutting boards for the same. The last question for the session. In which stage does adulteration take place mostly? In which stage does adulteration takes place mostly? Who is taking up this question?
Yes, ma'am, I'll be taking up this question. Ma'am, can you hear me?
We are not able to hear you properly. Who's this?
Ma'am, Kriti, can you hear me?
Yes, Kriti, go ahead. We can. Yeah.
Yeah. So, ma'am, adulteration can take place if it's intentional adulteration. So, depending upon the food product, the manufacturer can adulterate the food product during the processing of the product. And if it's unintentional, then the contamination or adulteration can take place at any stage of the processing of the food product, right from the raw material to the end processing of the product. So, yeah, this is it. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Kriti.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it does. It does. So I just put it out together that in a food chain, you have different people which are there. So you have a manufacturer, you have a wholesaler, you have a distributor, you have a retailer, you have a consumer then. So at different levels, the adulteration can take place depending upon the intention of the person who's handling the product. So that is what the student wanted to say. So thank you, Kriti, for the answer. So I think we are done with the questions. Thanks once again, and thanks to all the wonderful participants for being with us and encouraging us through this webinar series. We hope that you all stay with us throughout the series and keep us encouraged with your support and love. Thank you so much. I hand over the platform to Dr. Manali Rodrigues for concluding the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trisha Ganguly. And thank you, dear students, for an excellent presentation put in today. We now request all our participants to provide us with the feedback for this session. The links of the same have been shared with you. Our next session is on 13th of June from 4 to 5 p.m. on the topic Prevention and Management of Diabetes and Heart Diseases Through a Healthy Lifestyle by Dr. Ranjani Harish, and Creative, Convenient and Healthy Recipes for People with Diabetes by Ms. Nirali Khanna. Hoping to see you all. Thank you.